Red Dead Redemption is my number 2 favorite game of all time, only after The Last of Us. I have spent much time in my life in New Austin, Nuevo Paraiso and West Elizabeth. The game is really diverse and especially fun. But what would be even more fun to do is the biggest challenge I've ever done on this channel. We are finding out today if we can actually beat the entirety of Red Dead Redemption while only using a lasso and a knife. So yes, this Western game heavily relies on shooting. But guns are scary and we are not gonna use them. I can already imagine troublesome spots, but maybe we can find little quirks to work around that. For the most part, we have to find out if we can survive every battlefield we encounter with only melee attacks. The lasso does offer some ranged capabilities, but of course, the lasso will never kill anyone. This run took a very long time to do. Not only because the challenge gets kinda hard sometimes, but also because the game itself is very long. Even so long that I cannot possibly do this run justice if I would put this all into one video. The run itself was just too much fun. So this video will be split up in 2 parts, because yeah, there is so much to talk about. And let's get right to that. Can you beat Red Dead Redemption with only the lasso and the knife? So we arrive in New Austin and let Jake take us to Fort Mercer. Like I don't know where that is. We find Bill Williamson and right out of the gate, John wants to cheat the challenge. He grabs his gun and tries to shoot. But luckily, before he can, Bill Williamson guns him down. Good job, Bill! He must have secretly known about the challenge and prevented the player from actually failing on the first mission. Yeah, that must be it. Bonnie takes care of us and tries to give us a tour through the McFarlane's ranch, but I already encountered a glitch. I selected my favorite horse, the War Horse. I think I always have that deed equipped because some special edition from the game or something, but whatever. When I selected my War Horse Danny, my temporary horse ran away and my War Horse never came. So yeah, Bonnie will never start a tour without my horse.
Are you getting on the horse or not?
So now what? I figured that I had to fail the mission. You do fail every single mission in the game if you kill a dog, break the law, or die. So I tried to kill myself by jumping from the McFarlane's house. But that didn't kill me, unfortunately. But then I thought, wow, why not try our soon-to-be dear friend the knife out for the first time? So I ran to a random civilian and sliced him away. I immediately failed the mission and we now know that the knife is going to be really handy. In the end, Bonnie actually gives me the tour and we can rest easy for the day.
This is a fine weapon.
That I will never use. Bonnie asks us to take care of some rabbits that eat out the crops. They are the first enemies of the game. And here you can see what this run is actually about. I laughed out loud while playing this. It just looks very funny and dumb. We slice a few rabbits and the rest flees. But there are also coyotes on this ranch. Problem is that they run very fast. You can also do melee attacks with your knife while riding your horse, but I would only find that out much later in the run. We kill one of them and the rest flees away as well. Good job. A few pointless missions later and we meet Marshall Lee Johnson for the first time. He wants me to spy on some gang member and we just follow him to the Old Pleasance house. Now here we get into the first firefight of the game. And here is how this is actually going to work. We are going to run towards the enemies when it's most safe. Run up to someone, slice them and quickly hide in cover to regain our lives. This does not look so hard, right? And yeah, you're right, but this fight gives me time to talk about how the knife works. You have to be in range of an enemy if you are to slice them, but the way John faces also matters. If you are even a few degrees off target, John will just knife air. And during this animation, enemies can shoot you. At the end of the entire run, I would find out that I have expert targeting mode equipped from a previous run. So the entire run I played with that. Maybe that made the challenge harder than it needs to be, but well, that does make the challenge even more obscure, which I am here for. Luckily, this battlefield is not so hard yet, and if we take enough cover, we will clear this. What is way harder is the next mission, Justice in Pike's Basin. As you can see, we are walking through a giant corridor. And for someone with only a knife so far, that's, let's say, suboptimal. On the side of the road there are rocks everywhere that I can hide behind. And we use the same strategy as last time. Run, slice, cover, run, slice, cover. We get the option to join the deputies or the marshal, but I don't think there's a better choice. So I decided to join the marshal because I happen to be on that side. Now when I did, I tried to run left to right while approaching an enemy. You know, maybe that makes me a harder target, but no, actually no. The enemy just locks onto me and hits all of his shots if I run up to him. So that's not a reliable strategy going forward. We clear a camp that is a bit difficult, but not when you stay focused and have enough patience. But when we can move further, a problem occurs. Snipers are targeting us from the other side of the cliff. And with a knife, we are not able to do anything about them, right? Well, there is a bridge. We run onto the bridge and we risk it. That also means that we leave the marshal behind, but who cares? Kim, I have snipers to stab. While I was doing this, I was very unsure about this strategy, but you know, this is the right one. You are able to kill the snipers before they can kill you. We go further and slowly but surely we make it down into the second camp and stab everyone in our way. We just take cover after most encounters and it's all done. A little while later and Bonnie has a welcome gift for us. The Lasso. Finally we can hogtie people, which sometimes we are really gonna need. Bonnie lets us do some pointless horse breaking mission and in the end she gives us a white horse as a thanks. The bitch. She thinks I will part with Danny? No way. I immediately equip Danny again and slice the hell out of this awful gift. Come on, man. If you really know me, then you will know I will do everything in my power to keep Danny with me. Now from here it gets interesting. We find Nigel West Dickens on the side of the road. He is critically wounded. We never find out what it really is he feels, but okay. There is a timer on the mission, and we have to get him to a doctor in Armadillo before he dies. His health bar drops by time, but speeds up while he is shot, obviously. It's our task to get him home before his time runs out. But there is a big problem. Shooting enemies will try to stop us. And that's kinda bad for someone that only uses a knife and a lasso. So we are going as fast as we can. And in my first run, I tried to run past everyone. And I have to say it was close, but that just works. Like, really, these enemies are entirely skippable. Enemies won't follow you into town. Luckily, otherwise we would have definitely lost the run right here. But we haven't and we can continue. But now we know that parts where we are moving, like on a horse or something, are going to be troublesome. And trust me, I was right about this. There are parts like this coming up that are massive threats. But we haven't made it that far yet and we have to talk about the mission Spare the Rod, Spoil the Bandit from Marshal Lee Johnson. We ride out with the marshal and his deputies to find multiple campsites that have been slaughtered. They lead us straight to the Ridgewood farm. And something crazy is going on there. A woman warns us about bad guys that are holed up in his house. And this battlefield is very hard. At least that is until you know how to beat it. But there are many enemies hiding in cover. And if you are too fast, multiple men will straight up obliterate you at the same time. So of course, there was my first death of the game. But don't you worry. Many more are coming. It's a Red Dead. The best strategy here is to just run for them so you can get close. After many tries, I found out that the golden ticket here is to attack, run away, and when you have taken too much damage while you regenerate lives, run around the house to attack the enemies from the other side. They won't expect this most of the time and you can clear them, while in the meantime regaining your lives. In the house, however, there are a few campers waiting behind cover, which you have to be aware of. But you'll manage. Now the upstairs area is the most important here. There are two rooms. In both rooms, a shooter is holding someone hostage and we have to kill them before they shoot the targets. Now it cost me a few tries, but the first is doable if you are fast. Just run at him and slice him before he can make a move. But the second one, well, he has his priorities a little different. See, where the first man prioritizes you as the target, the second man isn't so kind. He will always target the civilian when you get too close. And one shot and she's dead. And now you can start again. I tried multiple times to run and slice him before he could kill her, but that never worked. In fact, in a few runs I ran inside the room and accidentally sliced the civilian myself. Unfortunately, the failed screen instantly plays, so we don't get to see the look on his face. Imagine that you are that killer and a man breaks into your hideout to save the hostages you hold, but then he runs into the room to kill them himself. But luckily we have a ranged weapon for this, right? We have a lasso now. Yeah, that's cool and all, but he's not helping either. When you throw the lasso, the civilian will block the throw and it will be as if the lasso was never thrown. So the man pulls the trigger, triggering your restart screen. Again. Man, this mission took me like 45 minutes up until this point. And do I see a way out? No. And like, I tried over and over and over. All kinds of strategies, but they all didn't seem to work. Also be aware that I have to kill all enemies outside every time I die to make it back here. In one run I stood in the door opening waiting for Marshall Johnson to kill the man, but he's just chilling there waiting for you to clean up his dirty work. But he has no idea what he has just done, because he is a run killer at this moment. Yes. Because let's answer the question. Can you beat Red Dead Redemption with only the knife and a lasso? I think it's quite unfortunate, but no, you really can't. Because of this guy. I have tried a lot of things and maybe there is some golden ticket that I've been missing in my runs, but I wasn't able to kill this man before he kills the hostage with only a lasso and a knife. So, yeah, run over. But I have to be honest with you. Before the shootout in front of the house, we have opened the barn. But that barn door was barricaded with 5 wooden planks. And I tried to slice them down, but it didn't work. I also tried to wait it out, so hopefully a teammate or something shot it. But nope, unfortunately, no. So I already failed the challenge right here. You can only get into the shootout if you have spent 5 bullets on these planks. I just thought it would fit better in the narrative to have our run filled by this guy instead of a few wooden planks. Screw you, you bastard! So what I decided to do for the rest of the run is this. I am going to count the segments where you have to fire bullets. And no, I'm not going to count the minimum bullets, because that won't make any sense and you will find out soon enough why. But every segment. So in this example, there are 2 segments where you have to fire your gun. Yeah. But let's not kill the mood. Although this run is failed, it's still very fun and we will definitely finish it. But we haven't even finished this mission yet. We will ride back to Armadillo, but when we get to Mercer Station, we get ambushed by Bill Williamson's gang. We hide in the ruins of this station and get ourselves into another gunfight. The best strategy here is to run and slice and then get back. Almost every time you leave the bunker, Marshall Johnson will yell, "What are you doing?" Or, "Are you crazy, boy?" Stuff like that, which is really funny. But Marshall, haven't you noticed my highly developed gunslinger strategies by now? My knife is my friend. Imagine wielding a gun. Ugh. We meet up with the recovered Nigel West Dickens and he wants us to ride with him to the Ridgewood farm again. He organizes a show there and there are many people eagerly watching. Like nothing just happened here. Really? Don't you guys have to mourn the mass slaughtering that just happened here? No? Okay then. Let's play this game with West Dickens. We drink the potion and we have to shoot the skull off the porch to impress everyone. As you can see, I tried to switch weapons. But the game just doesn't let me. The game is actively waiting for you to shoot the skull. So you have to. And that brings up our counter to 3. Once you have shot it, this guy wants you to shoot ahead from the sky. And when you do nothing, the mission will fail and you have to start again. So yeah, you have to fire 2 bullets again. But since they were in the same segment, that makes our number currently 3. Next up, there are a few missions that are really not worth mentioning. Like hunting Moses with Seth, racing for West Dickens, and protecting a McFarlane's cattle from a tempest and a barn on fire or something. Now what is interesting is the mission A Gentle Drive with Friends. We have to escort Seth to the tumbleweed graveyard. Sounds easy, right? Just ride to the graveyard. No, because people are coming to kill us. And we have no way to defend ourselves from men on horses. So what I would do is jump off the wagon and run through the area. That means that I can use my lasso to throw the enemies off their horses. Good plan. Once I did so, I can run at them and knife them. Now this is doable, given you have to be a little lucky with the line of sight and the positions of the enemies. But there is a bigger problem. See, you can imagine that this strategy, although effective, takes time. And during that time they are apparently also shooting the wagon. The health bar of this wagon is nowhere to be found, so you have absolutely no idea how many hits the wagon still has left. In some runs, I made it quite far without the wagon getting destroyed. But in other runs, the wagon only lasted for about 40 seconds. So yeah, not really consistent, but okay. What I did find out in this mission is the use of medicine. See, enemies are really fast on horses and can shoot you all the time from different positions. But when you open your consumables menu and select medicine, your lives instantly gets refilled. I should remind myself to make sure I max out on medicine after every mission just in case. Spoiler, I will forget that a lot and I will have less than 5, which is the max. Anyway, I found out that there are 3 enemy waves coming here. And my strategy requires a bit of luck. I have to get through the first wave of enemies without having the wagon taking so much damage. Yeah, I can't check that, but I can have a rough idea. Now, once the first wave of enemies has been dealt with, I make my way to Mercer station and park my wagon behind the ruins. That way, the enemies cannot hit the wagon from the entire right side. And we can just defend the left side. Yes, the wagon will still take a few hits, but not so many. The lasso is really handy in this part to quickly pluck enemies off their horses for an easy kill. Once you clean up the second wave, you can continue. But the third wave comes in the middle of nowhere. And the wagon has no cover there. Only thing we can do is leave the wagon and approach this like in wave 1. Now what I found out is that making a few kills is necessary, but when there are a few enemies left, it's way better to quickly catch them off their horses with the lasso and just leave them on the ground. Yeah, they will stand up again, but they cannot possibly follow you anymore. Sure, they will try running for you, but you have a wagon and they have nothing anymore. You will just outrun them. And that opens a freeway to get to Tumbleweed. I have to say, missions like this are getting pretty difficult. But again, with the right strategy, you will make it. We meet up with Irish for the first time, and he makes us slice all these enemies around Lake Don Julio. It takes some time, but if you remember to take cover occasionally, you should be fine. And this is a good warming up, because Irish lied to us about a machine gun and then we are being sent to Gaptooth Breach to recover the machine gun there. I don't know why John wants a machine gun when his primary weapon is a knife, but okay. Now, this mining camp is full of enemies, but there is also a lot of cover. But because the enemies are much spread out, many cover pieces won't actually work, and with a few, at least one enemy will still have a line of sight on you. It's a lot of trial and error. Hiding behind a small house here worked quite well in a few runs, but I cannot tell you an ideal route to take or something. Just because the enemies will wander most of the time, they will quickly change location. So every attempt has some randomness in it. Just be aware that there are many enemies, but the most intense part has to be inside the cave. It's a small corridor. Enemies face towards me and will open fire when they see me. I did develop a strategy pretty quick though. I can use my lasso to capture an enemy so he comes in a stun lock, make him fall on the ground, and then run up to him and slice him away. That's way easier said than done, because in some corridors there are many enemies that open fire. For example, this room, all the way in the end of the mine. It does really take quite a long time to get here, so I really don't want to die. The hard part about this is because some enemies hide all the way in the back. When I run up to one in the front, the rest will open fire. So I kept running around these rocks from left to right. Eventually I got kinda nervous, but I knew that I would just have to go for it. I ran and decided to target the one in the back, because he kept doing the most damage to me, I think. And I did take a lot of damage, but this was the right call. I was able to clean up the room. We take out the machine gun and we have to get it to the encampment. There are 2 shooters in our way right here, but the knife makes quick work of them. You have to cover a lot of distance to get to them, so you will take quite a lot of damage. But if you are fast enough, you are able to get this guy killed without dying. Now, I remembered that down there a guy is planting explosives, and the game wants me to shoot them before we can get there. But yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I tried to run up to the man and knife him. But then I failed the mission because I left the minecart behind. So in my second run, I got the minecart close to the man and then sliced him. But the explosives are still on the track. I tried to run it over, to lasso it, to knife it, and even tried to move the minecart at a big speed and jump off before it crashes into the explosives. That was all trial and error, because sometimes I would blow up myself, and sometimes the cart was just too slow. But I was able to pull that off in the end. But there I figured out that the mission also fails because the minecart was destroyed. So unfortunately, there's no way besides shooting to clear that TNT barrel. So we have to shoot and we can continue, bringing our shot segment count to 4. Now on to meeting Wes Dickens again. He performs a rip-off show in Plainview and the crowd gets angry and attacks us. The game expects us to shoot the bad guys quickly and then flee on Wes Dickens' wagon. But like in the ride with Seth, this takes way longer with the lasso and a knife. And it would happen a lot that I would fail the mission for the dumbest reason ever. Wes Dickens gets irritated and leaves. Really, I am risking my life and he flees because he gets frustrated. That frustrates me. So after 15 minutes or so, where I kept losing, I decided to not kill all the enemies here and instead flee. Now, when we have fled, of course more enemies are coming. But if we keep jumping off the wagon and try the same thing again, Wes Dickens' irritation counter, let's call it that, it restarts. So I have some time to slice them and get back, but I do have to be quick. The good thing about this is that when you have stopped, Wes Dickens no longer has to drive and he has time to take out his gun and shoot as well. And this strategy works, but it takes a long time and it's still not really safe. And there will come 3 waves before making it to Cueva Seca. Instead, I found an even better strategy. Just do nothing. Really, Wes Dickens keeps yelling that he is hit and we have to do something, but I didn't even use a single medicine here and it just works. They won't do enough damage to actually kill you. At one point there's a blockade, and when you get close to that, I would recommend to jump off and then kill the guys that were chasing you. There's also a guy standing on this rock, but you can throw your lasso to pull him off and then slice him. Do this quick though, because if Wes Dickens gets irritated again, it's game over. And yeah, you made it, but like the TNT on the mine track, this blockage also carries TNT and Wes Dickens refuses to move before it has exploded. And of course, he is too lazy to do that. So looks like our counter goes up to the 5th segment where we have to shoot. Once we do, the wagon can continue and only 1 more enemy wave is coming. I would sometimes jump off to kill 1 or 2 enemies, but most of the time, doing nothing is the trick. Because we are in the area, let's cover Seth's last mission. He is finally onto his treasure, which is located in the mansion in Tumbleweed. We first have to make it through the town, which is a bit difficult. My advice would be to keep running to different spots. You can take a few shots until you die, so this should work, and it does. When changing location so much, you can take enemies by surprise. We make our way up to the house and kill everyone there. But we cannot enter the house until every enemy has been dealt with. And the problem is this one shooter in the window with good cover. Seth really has a hard time dealing with him. And yeah, I do too, obviously. I would find out that with the perfect lasso throw, I can lasso the man, but that is of no use. The lasso won't kill him, but this was like the only thing I could do. After wandering around the house and lassoing the man for like 20 minutes, for some reason, Seth randomly shoots the man for an easy one-hit KO. Why? Why not earlier? Whatever. Inside the house is a bit difficult and you have to take cover a lot, but nothing major. Medicine will be quite useful here. Irish's mission on Shaky's ground is very difficult. We are rescuing Shaky out of the warehouse, but there are enemies everywhere. And we have dealt with that, right? What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that some enemies are way higher than you, and others stand in clusters of 3 or 4. Let's first discuss these enemies up here. Of course you can reach them, but you have to climb on there, which takes like 2 seconds. And they will open fire when you do this, not to mention that you can fall off again. I would sometimes lasso them off their platform, but that only works sometimes because the rest is gonna open fire at you. It takes a very long time, but when you only attack when it's safe, you can do this with a few medicine. Outside there are a few clusters of enemies. Be aware that if you were to die, you have to start the warehouse all over again. Groups of 2 are manageable. The knife animation can be tedious here if you get unlucky. See, sometimes John randomly decides to stab an enemy after you've already sliced them. And this animation costs like 1.5 to 2 seconds. And that's a lot of time to get shot at. I have noticed so far that when you keep spamming the attack button, the stab attack triggers more often than not. So just press it a few times while attacking and groups of 2 can easily be dealt with in this example. But with groups of 3 it gets tricky. I would recommend to run up to them and slice at least 1, 2 only if possible. But you can imagine that leads into catastrophe every now and then. Medicine will be much needed during these attack runs, so make sure you get enough before starting this mission. With medicine and a lot of patience, in the end you can clear this with all these attack runs. When we flee, we get the same part as last time. We are on a wagon and we can get killed, but we can also get the wagon wrecked. I would frequently jump off to lasso enemies and slice them. There is one enemy on the bridge right here, but you can skip him, and if you are just taken not so much damage earlier, this won't fail the level. This part took me like 9 tries or something. Hanging Bonnie McFarlane is the next mission, and whew, this is hard. There are multiple clusters of enemies, and as expected, they will hang Miss McFarlane during the battle, and she may not die. So you have to shoot the rope before it kills her, bringing our counter up to 6. There is just no other way, because I cannot get close enough to slice the rope, even if we imagined that would work. I would recommend the same strategy as last time with Seth in this town. Keep moving and surprise the enemies. They won't know what hit them, and by doing that, we have saved Bonnie and gotten everyone into position for the one thing I came here to do, the assault on Fort Mercer. Everyone meets on the top of the cliff outside of Fort Mercer, with Seth inside. The plan is great. Wes Dickens is going to perform a show, and when he signals, we open the wagon and we decimate everyone with the machine gun Iris provided. But in this run, obviously, it works quite a bit different. We wait until Wes Dickens gives the signal. We open the wagon and we do nothing. The big finale, doing nothing. Wes Dickens keeps yelling, "For Christ's sake, John, starts firing!" Or, "Shoot the damn thing!" I was hoping that Wes Dickens and Seth were actually able to kill enemies as well, but in this scene, Seth is retarded. I mean, cannot blame him actually, he is retarded every day, but Wes Dickens is so scared that he will only hide. The game does not let us leave the turret, and nothing happens when I do nothing. Big shock, yeah, I know. So we have to fire a machine gun to kill everyone. And this is the reason why I am counting segments instead of the minimum bullets. There is no way to count them all, and the number would be very high, which is what we don't want. So yes, We are currently on 6, but we are going to reach 7 in this mission. We first clear the entire fort with a knife, which is a bit hard, but oh well. After that, there are many enemies coming from Rio Bravo to Fort Mercer, and we have to step on the machine gun again. Here I try to do nothing again, and it works better than before because my teammates are on the balcony of this fort. But it's not enough. We can also not leave the turret while doing this. So this is another segment where we have to fire the gun. But having done that, this mission is over. Bill Williamson has fled to Nuevo Paraiso, unfortunately. The only thing left to do to end this act is getting there. And we have to talk about doing that. So the mission We Shall Be Together in Paradise is really interesting. See, Irish has a raft that brings us to the other side of the river. But the rebels cut the wire and we drift away. And this is a huge problem, because on the entire cliff sides, and we are coming through a lot, there are many ranged enemies, all of whom fire at you. But you can just take cover, right, and float beside them. No effect. Because the real difficulty of this is not making sure that you survive, but you letting Irish survive. Really? The mission fails if he has taken too much damage and dies. And that leaves me with very little options. There are a few enemies in range for your lasso during the entire mission, so that really does not help. So after failing 15 times doing quote-unquote nothing, I set myself to shoot the entire mission. But right before I did that, I figured something out. See, I did equip my rifle and started targeting enemies. But before I actually shot, I realized that all enemies target me instead of Irish. That way we can keep him alive. And what is even better is that I take way less damage than the usual. I think the developers programmed this because I'm on a raft and there's very little counterplay. And this strategy of aiming at the enemies without firing absolutely works! After a few medicine and like 30 attempts. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is that you should not target from cover, but from a free walk. If you target from cover, this strategy won't work, and enemies shall still hit Irish. There are a few checkpoints, and they are really necessary. Otherwise the strategy wouldn't have worked at all. But what is really bad is next. There is a guy on top of that cliff throwing dynamite. And that is a big problem. It's very inconsistent where the dynamite is going to land. So I died over and over and over from bad placed dynamite. But you know, one time I had a run where the man threw the dynamite so that I would take lots of damage, but with 2 medicine, I think, I would not die from the blast. Now, what I was really worried about was Irish, of course. And I don't know why, but he kept surviving the blast as well. And not just one, no, there were many. I really don't know how his health works, but okay, he lives and so do we. And the best thing is that we've gained a checkpoint right after this. When you die later, which will undoubtedly happen, you will respawn right here. And the game thinks that you would have most certainly taken care of this man by now. So the game does not spawn him in anymore. So once you got past him once and don't reset the entire mission, you got rid of the guy without shooting. We move on and found that my position on the raft also matters. I will always try to position myself so that I'm facing the closest to the enemies. They are more likely to hit shots this way, and I don't want that damage inflicted to Irish. So I would frequently change location from left to right. But there are 2 spots coming up where a man is throwing dynamite as well. And I tried so long and so hard, but I wasn't able to withstand their blasts. Or at the very least, Irish died every time, 100% of the time. So the strategy works in this level, but there is no consistent strategy for these 2 guys. That means there are 2 segments where you have to shoot the man throwing dynamite again. That brings our counter up to 9. Once you get further, there are a few places where you can even branch out of the strategies we use. The raft will sometimes sail way closer to the land. And when this is the case, we will no longer aim our gun at the enemies. No, we will equip the lasso and get some of them in stun lock. 1 enemy per good lasso throw will never do damage. There is 1 more dynamite throwing man coming up, But luck is a big factor here. I don't know why, but I did have a few runs where he accidentally, at least I hope, blew himself up, saving me the bullet. So yeah, we shall be together in paradise. That is, after a little over 90 minutes spent dying on this raft. But we do make it to Nuevo Paraiso. We are going to meet a few new people here, like Ricketts. And he is really selfish. Like, he must know that I'm trying to do this without shooting, but the man wants to give me shooting lessons nonetheless. And to be even more lame, we have to shoot bottles. Now, I cannot move while doing this, is what the game thinks. But when you equip the knife and start slicing air, you can move. Only downside is that this strategy does not work, since you cannot break the bottles while doing this. So we have to make 3 more shots. But of course, this counts as 1 more segment. After that, Landon wants me to shoot down a few birds. Now, I tried to do this with my lasso, but that won't work as well. So you have to shoot them as well. But since they fall in kind of the same lesson, I decided to include these shots in the same segment as we just counted, bringing our counter up to 10. The next day we meet up with Landon again, and he wants us to accompany him to El Matadero. Some random girl named Luisa is imprisoned there. I really don't care, but he insists we come along. Okay then. And luckily we do, because this part is very funny. There is a big tight cave here with a lot of soldiers guarding the cells. We are going to run at all of them and slice them down. It does get hard on a few points where there are multiple enemies standing. Unfortunately, every time I die, I have to walk down again and wait for Carlos to distract the guards. But after dying a few times, I thought, screw it. These guards don't need distracting. What they need is some big ass knife in their torso. So I ran at them and sliced them as well, just like everyone else here. This part took me about half an hour, but that also must have been because of the lack of cover I took. Now when we rescue Luisa from her cell, we get into this scene where there are a lot of soldiers waiting for us. This also takes some time and Landon keeps snarling at you, but you can do this while just running and slicing. Now you might have noticed that the difficulty is spicing up, and it's only getting way harder and harder. So let's end part 1 of this run with a very difficult mission. Civilization at any price. We meet Captain Vicente de Santa. To win his trust, we ride with him. There is a train leaving from Chuparosa, which we have to escort. You can see the health bar of the train displayed on top of your screen. And trust me, that health bar is dropping fast. There are Mexican rebels assaulting the train from all directions, which I have to kill. But you can also imagine that you and the rebels have to stay with the moving train. And they can shoot, but of course, we cannot. So the first problem I ran into are the rebels hiding here. They will attack the train, but I thought, what would happen if I just run to them and kill them before the train gets here? Ha, too bad, because the game displays that you abandoned the train and you failed the mission. I was only trying to strategize. But whatever, if we wait a bit and let the train come closer, we can then use this strategy. That will clear them up. What I should mention is that it takes practice to climb on a moving train. There were several parts where I tried to jump onto the train, but actually bumped into it and fell on the ground like a loser. One time the train even killed me. But okay, there are multiple groups of rebels coming from the left and the right side. But the train is in your way, obviously. But I came up with a plan. What would happen if I would stand on the train, throw my lasso, and make the enemies fall off their horses? Solid plan, right? Because they have to attack the front of the train. And if they lose their horses, they can never get to the speed of the train, and that enemy will become useless. But the game refuses to let me equip the lasso while on the moving train. So that will never work. Damn it! But I can use this strategy while I move on my horse. So I will ride up to groups of rebels and sometimes I would lasso them so they fall off to the ground. I would sometimes knife someone if an opportunity rose up, but I will not recommend that. The reason being that it takes mostly 2 slices for an enemy to die. So you might hit them once, but that won't do so much. The best strategy here is to just lasso them and hover from the left to the right side wherever the rebels are. Now when we enter Die Coronas, there is a small tunnel. And there is an ambush waiting there. The best thing we can do is to attack the enemies on the left side. Simple reason being that they throw sticks of dynamite. In my first 10 or so runs I tried to kill the enemies on the right side as well, but knifing then costs time. And not only do more rebels come a little up ahead, who will target the train as well, sometimes I was busy killing the enemies on the right, I got this message again. Meaning the train moved further up than I thought and I had to retry again. Man, this part is really difficult. And especially a test of your patience. When you get past this tunnel, there's one more group of rebels coming from the right side, like I just said. The best thing for them is to lasso them and leave them on the ground. I thought I lost this attempt, but the train had a little bit health left when we finally entered Casa Madrugada. Whew. This cost me like 80 minutes to do. And we can finally relax again. At least that's what I thought. We may have finally escorted the train, but that's not even close to being the hard part. I thought it was over, but there's one final scene in this mission. Come on, man! The train gets stolen by rebels. It is heading towards a bridge that is not finished yet. That means it's up to us to steal it back and pull the brake in time. So we whistle for Danny and ride as fast as we can. And the problem is not that we cannot maintain the speed of the train. Oh no, the problem is that we have to kill everyone on the train and make it to the front. And there is very little time for that. Of course, this mission was never designed to play with a knife and a lasso, but yeah, here we are. What ended most of my runs was the inability to climb onto a train. The mission gets a little easier if you know how to do this already. So here again, I would bump into the train a lot. And that means that it's game over most of the time, because it takes a while for you to get up and you cannot possibly afford to lose this time. The train even killed Danny one time. No! Oh! So I just lost on purpose here. I cannot lose my best friend in the world. But luckily when I respawned, I had equipped Danny again. Whew! There were also a few runs where I decided to ride alongside the train and lasso everyone off. But that takes way too long, and with most enemies, you can't even pull them off of there. So the only thing that would make sense is to climb on the train, quickly slice everyone, that I just would have enough time to pull that brake. But there are various ways to interpret this strategy. Most important thing was to figure out where I actually had to climb on the train. The second wagon seems to make more sense because it's the most open and the easiest to climb on. But that's kind of in the middle of the train. That means that I would have to run and climb all the way to the back of the train and slice everyone there, and make it back again to kill the last ones in the front and pull that brake. I tried this for, I don't know, 25 attempts, and it takes really long. So I kept on trying, but all these factors seem to work against me. And that is when I know that a strategy is not consistent. Problems that would arise is that I would bump into the train and lose time, fall off the train, whistle for Danny and he did not make it on time, or I would just die. Most times when I lost time, I just jumped off the cliff. And you don't even die from the fall. They programmed the mission so that jumping off the cliff is forbidden in this mission, which is funny to me. Now, as for the winning strategy, because obviously there is. You have to get inside an opening somewhere here. And this is very hard to do though, because the opening is very small and you can easily just bump into the train and fall on the ground and your run is over. But when you do this, you only have to make your way to the front, instead of making it all the way to the back and then to the front. This is going to take longer than normal because all the enemies you have to kill. But you do have enough time for this. And we have finally stopped the train and finished this level. That is, after more than 2 hours. I think that is a great place to leave part 1 of this run. Now for the final part 2, which is coming out in like a week or something, it's going to be really hard. In this part I also decided to include some minor missions so you can get a feeling of how the entire run is going to be with a knife. You might have noticed slight problems in these missions that you wouldn't typically think about when playing Red Dead with only a knife and a lasso. And now you know how the, let's say, base game works and how every mission is played. But I will skip these minor missions and focus more on the hard and more interesting parts of the entire run in part 2. And trust me, this run is going to be really hard ongoing. As for my thoughts so far, I really do like this run. I have a lot of fun. It's very funny and the difficulty is good. At least so far, it hasn't been so hard yet in the grand scheme of things. But I know that the difficulty is ramping up, which I like very much. So stay tuned for that. This has been yet another half of an obscure video game run. So until very soon, I'd say, take care.